Welcome back guys to another video. So in this video I'm going to start working with the next section of application, which is to make the user able to chat with other users by clicking on any user. So our onUser selected interface has given us a user model and also a string that represents each user ID. So we want to add the onClick listener now to take us to the check activity. But first we need to do a check because we don't want a user to be able to chat with himself. So we want to make sure that the user is not selecting his own ID. Okay, so we will say if the user ID, my ID seems slow, so if the user ID is equal to the current user ID, which we'll get from our mauth, so copy mauth. Then if the user ID is equals to mauth dot current user dot uid, so if it's your non-null assertion, don't forget to add it. So if it's the same ID, then we don't want to, or we can even make this not equal to. So the user can only click on the user only if the current user is not equal to himself, and if it's not equal to, hey, then we want to fire up an intent. So we call this intent, and this will be equal to the normal intent for Android. And then in here we need to use the application context or just a context. So I can say get application context, but since we want to use the property access syntax, so we can just do application context. And the second argument is the activity that we want to navigate to, which is our chat activity. So I'll say chat activity oops, not dots. So we put this class class.java. Okay, so this will take us to the activity, but we need to put something, or we need to send something to that activity. So with that we can use the intent put extra function. So we can say intent.put extra, and the extra we want to put is we'll have a key and a value, but we want the key to come from our constant class. So I'll open up my constant class here. Oh, I only have one constant. Seriously? Did I have more? Okay. Oops. So copy and paste it and then change this. So this will be user ID. I'm going to, oops, let's make that capital letter. And then the value here will be user ID, right? So I'll come here, I will say put extra, the key is going to be constant dot user ID, and the value will come from the user ID that we have here. Then after that we want to start the activity. So the intent dot start the activity. Oops, we don't just call intent, so we say in start activity and then put in the intent. Okay, so this will take us now to the chat activity. And once we're inside the chat activity, the first thing we want to do first is to make sure that we retrieve the incoming user ID, right? So because if we don't retrieve the incoming user ID, we might get a null pointer exception telling us that there is something wrong with our string. So here I'm going to say val, then this will be user, oops, I'm going to name this incoming user ID, and this will be equal, oops, this will be a type string first of all. What did I just do? This will be a type of string first of all, and then this will just be equal to a null for now. Now after that, I'm going to put a method here which is I'm going to call this get intent and init, because we are going to initialize, also get it the intent and then initialize some things in this method. So I'm going to hit Alt Enter to create a function. So now that we have gotten the function, we want to make sure that we retrieve what came from the other activity. So we will call this incoming user ID will be equals to intent. Oops, where is it? Yep. So this is coming from the get intent, right? So intent.get string extra, and the extra we have is from our constant. So we say constant dot user ID. So now we have gotten the intent. Now another thing, oops, change the val. Okay, we cannot reassign this because it's a val, so let's change this to val. Now we want to make sure that the coming intent is not equals to null, because if it is equals to null, the activity will crash. So we want to make sure about that. So we're going to write an if statement here. So we say if the incoming intent is equal to null, then we just want to finish this activity. Finish it. So this will put a check and then make sure that we don't have a crash. Okay. And the next thing I want to do is we have a toolbar in our activity here. So what is the name of this toolbar? The toolbar should be called, let's see, image button, this. I even thought we had a toolbar here. This also have a toolbar. Oh yeah, we have a toolbar. So I didn't get that earlier. So a toolbar here, we need to initialize the toolbar. So I'm going to come here in here and initialize the toolbar. So I'll say val toolbar. Now the toolbar, I will just use a find view by ID instead of using calling synthetics. So I use find view by ID arrow.id dot is called, oops, not this. So arrow.id dot toolbar, and then we can also cast it to a toolbar by saying dot as toolbar. But this casting is unnecessary because it's just unnecessary. So let's move that away. Now the next thing I'm going to do, something is wrong here. So it says find view by ID. Let's see what this is complaining about. Oh, we still need to cast it as a toolbar. So we'll just say as toolbar. Now the next thing I want to do again is to make sure that it is support action bar, or make sure that it is an action bar. So I'll say set the support action bar to our toolbar. Now after that, we are supposed to set the title of the toolbars, but we don't want to set the title of the toolbar because we already have a text that will show the user name, which is this text, so we don't need the title. But I just realized that if I don't set the title, the toolbar automatically set the title by itself, but I'm not sure that why that is happening, but that is what it does normally. Now the next thing here I'm going to do here is to say toolbar.setTitle. I'm just giving an empty string. Okay. Now after this, we need to get the user info from the other user, like his name and his image. And I'm going to initialize a second method here, say called get user details. Now inside the get user details, we want to get everything about the user, but the get user details should take in the user ID and in here I can't directly pass the user ID because it has not been initialized. So what I'm going to do now is to copy this function call and paste it in here and then put in the incoming user ID. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that I add to arguments. Now after that has been added, so we need to fire up Firebase firestore here and get some things running. But also we also need to initialize our Firebase also. I'll say private var mauth. So the mauth will be a subtype of Firebase auth. Right, so I'm going to initialize this to null by default. Now inside the inits, I am going to initialize this first. So this should be mauth equals to Firebase auth instance. Now I want to initialize Firebase firestore, so I'm going to call this db. So this db will just go ahead and get the other user information so that we'll display it on the chat screen. So now this will be equals to Firebase firestore, Firebase firestore dot get instance, and then we can directly navigate to the collection, but let's do that in the next line. So here I'm going to call a document reference again. So I say val doc ref. Now this doc ref will be equals to our db dot the collection, and the collection is inside the users. So I'll use my constants. So this will be constants dot user, not user id, constant dot users, right? After this, we also want to navigate to the documents, which is the current user ID. So I will pass in the incoming user ID. Now we need to assert this, so I'm going to put the double exclamation mark. Now the next thing I want to do is to add the snapshot listener, because we want to listen for real-time changes. So that I will use docref.add snapshot listener. And the snapshot listener, I need the one that returns the value and the exception. So I'll hit enter and then I'll set the default name that it auto generated. Okay, so the next thing you want to do now is to actually check for null pointer exception using the error. So I will use the if statement here. I will say if the error is not equal to null. And the error is not equal to null, we just want to return. Okay, so I'll say return a snapshot listener. Now after the if statement, we can continue with the rest of the stuff. So the name of the user is called what's again? Let's see. Name Roberts. It's called username. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to my chat activity. So I will paste it here. I'll say username.setText. So here I'm directly using the I'm using calling synthetics here. So I'll say username.text. So I have to import it. So it's the username that is coming from the activity chats. So username.text. This will be equal to our value, which is our value, or we can change this to snapshots. Okay. So this is coming from the snapshot.get. So here we need to put in a field, and that field is called name, just like it is in our user and model class. So it's called name, but I just don't want to directly put in the name here, so I'll use my constants class and then call it from the constant class. So I'll change this to name and put this to name. Or I can just say username. Yeah. So I'll come to chat activity and then I will say constants dot username. So this should get it for me, and don't forget to convert it to a string. Oops. dot to string. So this should get the username and then display the username directly in the name stuff. Sorry, directly display it in the edit text or the text view, the name text view. Okay, so time to load up the glide library with our circle image view, and let me check the ID of the circle image view real quick. So the circle image view is called profile image. So inside my chat activity here, I will use the glide library now. So this will be, but first I want to check, because by default we hold on, by default the image is called, let's see something in our register activity. By default the image field is called image, and if the image field is called image, that will not be a valid URL to load for glide to load my images. So what it's going to do is it might try an exception or crash. So we need to first of all check that it is not the default name that I gave it. So here we can say if snapshot dot get, then the field will be called image. So here I'm going to go to my constant and add another field here called image. So this now will become the user image, then this will be called image. Now, so we need to make sure that it is so constant dot user image. So if the snapshot is constant dot user image is equal, null assertion, is equal to constant dot image. So that means if it is same thing, then don't show it. And I'm going to just make this a not equal to, only it should show it only if it's not equal to the same thing, because we need a valid URL for glide to be able to load up the user image. So here I'm going to call glide, so say glide dot width, the width accept the context, so I'll just put in this. Now we are going to dot load something which is URL. So the URL will coming from the constant dot user image. So I'm going to copy it and paste it here. Then we are to load into an image view, and my image view is called profile image. So copy this and put it here. Okay, so this should be done. This should go ahead and load up the user image. Let me see there. So the toolbar is giving a problem. So it says create function set support action bar. It's actually set support action, but maybe I'll fix that later when I'll test it. So I think I'm going to end this video here. It's getting 18 minutes. This is getting way too long. So thank you guys for watching. In the next video I'll test this application out for you to see, and hopefully this should work. So thanks guys for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you've not, and I will see you in the next video.